G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to show this one here. You've seen the chassis before, you've seen the bits and pieces before otherwise, but it's a new round. One that I was hoping to get earlier with all the, if people who are building rifles at the moment would realise that the likes of the barrel makers are really struggling in places, lots of orders and issues with getting materials and things like that. So all over the world things are slowing down in the way of getting barrels, and this is one of the ones that got trapped into that little space. I ended up changing gears a little bit with the one I ordered for this 6 months ago. It's still not showed up, and I found this one on the shelf, which is now a benchmark barrel but in 7mm. But what I'm actually talking about, this is, these two in the middle here is actually what I'm talking about. That's the 7mmWSM. Something I've wanted to be getting to here. I wanted to go step by step. I could have done with it a couple of months ago in my 3,000 yard sort of ELR series we did this season, as it was the one I was really hoping to be able to get to, because I think it's a great little round, a great little, well, I don't think it is, I know it is, very popular in the F-class side of things, very popular target round, very popular in lots of different ways. And the 7mmWSM, very similar bracket to the 7mm Storm. I chose the WSM simply because of the equipment or the bits and pieces I get, loading gear and that sort of stuff in the way of dies, and the ream I could find, those sort of things. So that's the reason I chose it. But like I said, very similar creature. I suppose I'll quickly go through the rifle for you. It's in this Gareth Crook Precision Development chassis done up for us. It is champagne colour, so it's actually just neutral and hard anodized aluminium, which is what this lovely sort of champagne look is in. We've got in front of us here. Specifically set up for us, one of his chassis in the basic form, slight mod to take my component D to put my bipod system on the front, and slightly different down the back here, as I don't need to adjust the butt pad height because I want it set up for exactly where I want it set up, which is what this is. So that's the chassis, lovely looking thing. Our bipod system on the front of it, as you can see, and no, for people who can't see, no, they don't mount to the barrel. They're mounted through this little shaft on the bottom here that goes inside the chassis on this one here. My component D, made in different size, there's all sorts of things, but that's what that is there. Have the solid bipod feet on it, which I found have really helped to really like them this season. They work really well, so I've got my solid bipod feet on it. Benchmark barrel, I think I mentioned, is what I've got in here. It's a 1 in 8 twist. I was going to go with 1 in 9, but I see no negatives to the 1 in 8, so that's what we're testing at the moment. Ended up at 27.5 inches. It's about the length, 27, 28 is the neck of the woods where I felt I was going to see the optimum with no negatives attached to it. A lot of guys think longer is better. I tend to find at a certain point that becomes it's a negative, which is just the friction side of things. There's other details going on, let alone fitting in gun safes and things like that. But there was another key ingredient. This is a tapered barrel, and my muzzle brakes are 25mm, so that's exactly where that ended up at that distance. So ultimately the taper is what set the distance on this one here, but a pretty good distance, I thought. And then one of my 3-port the 1x18mm thread muzzle brakes on the front of it, so pretty nice in the 7mm format. It's got one of the actually there's a rail I got up here, which is a 60 MOA rail, which in this KS Arms action, which is what this action is. Now you've seen this combination in the last time I used it was with the 338 Edge. Shot beautifully, great, very capable chassis action. All the other bits and pieces are the same except for the barrel and the muzzle brake. Really happy with this action. It is a long action, which I chose deliberately, so it's a nice place. Not that I do anything other than single feed, but in the way of magazine feeding, to be able to do that around with a long action with these projectiles, or sorry, where I set up this round with the projectile a long way out. Which gives you all the things of a long projectile, but some more capacity by doing that side of things, and really set it up to suit, to actually fit better in a long action than it does in a short action if you wanted to run out of magazine. Like I said, not an issue for me, but that's how I set it up. So that's the combination of the rifle, attacker 7x35 scope on the top of it. Obviously I float these around, they go on all sorts of different rifles all over the place, but having the 60 MOA rail means this sits straight on top. I get 100, well actually they're really advertised at 100 minutes of elevation out of the 7x35. I set them up in the fashion where generally I can get over 110, 120 minutes without too much trouble. And then I've got them in a 70 MOA or 0 to 70 MOA air attack, which means all up this combination here can 0 at 100 yards and wind up in total with everything 190 minutes of elevation. So, you know, getting out there, we're not quite at 3,000 yards, but we're over 2,500 yards in the way of elevation is what this can dial in itself. And then if we need to run the Night Force wedge on the front, obviously go as far as we want. Or the Charlie Chirac. That's about what I can tell you at this moment in the build of the rifle. The round, which I sort of want to get into, it's something, like I said, it's something that I always felt was going to be a very good option. I wanted to get there through this season, and I was, like I said, hoping to get there a little while ago to be able to show this off. But we went from, and I suppose one of the keys that is always relevant with the ELR side of things is being able to see your impacts. So the right sort of conditions. The right sort of ground, the right sort of light, all those bits and pieces really matter. So that moves from the ridiculous of way too big for most things, the 50 BMG, which you can see in most places, back down to the likes of the 416 Barrett, which is very popular in places, but still a big thumper, doing a lot. And then into your 408s and 375 Shytacs and the enablers and that sort of stuff, which still running pretty big heavy bullets, but you're sneaking back down. And as this season, as we walk through, we're getting down to the 7mm and still seeing good results out there. Once you get back down to the 6.5s and the 6s, yes, you can see them, but you need the perfect conditions. And then there's the amount of elevation and all those sort of bits and pieces involved. Nothing to do with killing energy, hunting energy, terminal velocity, terminal ballistics at all. This is about target shooting, getting a plink on plate, but being able to see that impact matters. And the 7mm was looking like it was doing a good job. The other thing is in the way of just the efficiencies of things. What I already found, and the one that really stood up and I was really super impressed, was with a 300 WSM, a 220 grain bullet doing 2,900 feet per second. I was really impressed with how that performed, which is, once again, not news to the world, but it is still stood up in the test we put it through as well. Shot really nicely. So I was really looking forward to this. The WSM, like I said, very similar to the SORM, in the same place as the 7mm, but something that I really wanted to go to. In the front here, you have what they look like. This is actually the 300 WSM, like I said, with a 220 gram projectile in it. Awesome, 2,900 feet per second. Worked very nicely. This I've forgotten the maths exactly what I got on the powder here, but I think we're talking almost, 8% less powder, slightly less bullet at 190 grains versus the 220 grain. And we're not pushing too hard yet on our powder. Probably we're going to leave it at the moment. But we were seeing, and I'll explain that in a minute, but we were seeing 2,900 feet per second, just over 2,900 feet per second, also out with the 190 grain burger in there. Just for comparison, we got alongside here, this is actually the 7mm Rem mag, quite a bit longer for that sort of setup. That's that one there, and alongside it is the 28 Nosler. Fair bit more beans than the 28 Nosler, and we're running the 3,200 feet per second with the 28 Nosler. So a lot more up there, probably a little more barrel wear depending how you use it, sort of stuff. But shot awesome, was a great one as well. And that was in this same action as I mentioned. Anyway, this one here actually set up where you could magazine feed in the way of the short action, in the long action side of it, even though we've run that round, pushed that the projectile out by pushing the throat forward. We're actually pushed the throat forward to 82mm, and we have that's running with the 190 grain burger, and we're actually running at just under 40 thou jump. I don't get too specific about my 40 thou jump, which means we've got an overall length to the tip of 81mm. I don't get too specific about the jump setup or measuring that properly until I've run enough rounds to actually go through and start the bed-in process, so the rifle is settled, so the throat is settled, and you know what you're really measuring to rather than just a fresh cut. But that's where it's set up. What I did, the normal process I actually set up 3 rounds. This is yesterday morning, 5 rounds. I shot 3. Set up 5 rounds with 1 grain different pressure between each one of them. I set them up using the charts to go through and work out what pressures we could go to. And I went from the mid-range up to the top end and just past the top end side of things for normal loading, keeping in mind I'm running the projectile out further, so I have a bit more capacity in there. And then fired the first one, very low on pressure, skipped the second one, went to the third one, fired it, still right in the middle of the pressure, so nothing looking stressed at all. I jumped right to the top one because of exactly that look, and I still was at a moderate level. I'll show what the primer looks like, but it has just there's still a reasonable softness to the side there. There's no stamping or anything, so probably could go further, and I suspect we could probably run into the 2950 without too much trouble. Maybe even C3000. I don't think so. I think probably the 2950, but we'll see. But it's not a bad place where it is at the moment. Shot beautifully. Really impressed. Always have been. Everything I've run in this chassis, it does. It's a very well set up chassis. Like it a lot. Action, they're just really good. These 3 lugs things are really nice. Nice finish, nice look, nice feel. I really do like the KS arms in the way of the action side of it. And in this second barrel, everything is working a treat. So hopefully, we'll see. It may dry out a bit. We may get some fine weather. We may have a late start to winter. I suspect not. I think we might be toasted for the ELR for this part of the season, and it'll probably be 3-4 months down the track, and then we can get out and start whacking the plate again. But we'll see. Very happy at this moment. That's the last thing. This one's actually got a dual trigger set up in here, just on 1 pound. So. All very nice, very happy with it. Yeah, that's about what I can tell you. Leave any comments below. Thank you very much for checking in. Hope you like the look of the rifle, and otherwise, we'll catch you next time.